Shalom, ladies, and welcome to Coffee and Connection week 58. Oh my goodness, it's so nice to be here with all of you on this cold winter night. It's definitely one of those days that looked warmer than it was, but still a beautiful, crisp day. And now it is great to warm up together with all of you with my coffee and connect with all of you with this really important topic. Um, I have so many ideas that I want to share on this idea, and it could be that we'll do this for more than 1 week because it's just so important as we step into the busy season, right? Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet is coming up this week. I already have to remind myself that I actually have to go out and get the costumes and get the mishloach manot and prepare Purim, and then that means Pesach cleaning and everything that comes along with that. There is a lot. There is a lot that we need to start juggling. And it's a crazy time of year. It really, really is. And it comes with it a lot of extra stress. Here in Israel, we have kids home for much of those weeks. It's financially very stressful for many of us. I think everyone. I don't think anyone goes through Pesach and Purim without feeling like, wow, this is really there's something extra stressful about it. And a lot of that stress then ends up playing out in our relationship. And, I really want to say that the first and foremost thing is that it's really important to recognize how often and whether or not we are doing this, taking our stress out on our relationship. And what do I mean by that? I mean that a lot of times when we feel stressed, a lot of the times when there's a lot going on in our heads and, on our shoulders and a lot that we have to do, we feel we feel overwhelmed. We feel like, something's not working or something's not the way we want it. And whenever things are not going the way we want them, we as humans have a tendency to place blame. We have a tendency to look for where to blame. I remember many years ago, and this is a story actually that my husband put in one of his books, Human by Choice. There, I was living in Beersheba at the time, and I remember just sitting in the car waiting for my husband as he like went in to get something from a store, and there was a man who was unloading a vegetable truck into a store, and something happened, and he dropped a whole carton of like oranges or something all over the place. I mean, they were all over the street, and you could just see that in the moment that it happened, he just kind of like looked around as if like, who can I blame? Right? Who's to blame? And it can be very difficult when we are stressed about something not to put the blame on someone, not to look for it, even just unconsciously in our minds. There's something that makes us feel, right? Me included, of like, where does the blame for this lie? And a lot of times when we're just feeling overwhelmed and feel like we have a lot on our shoulders and maybe we don't see, or maybe it's just true that our husbands don't have as much on their shoulders, we can very easily turn and blame them and make them the fault of our stress, or just take out on them everything that we're feeling. So first and foremost, it's really important to remember that if we're feeling stressed, sometimes the the moment is stressful, and that doesn't mean that we need to put that feeling we need to that we have to blame someone for that, right? This is something that came up a lot. It was one of the lessons that I really took and tried to give over to my kids over Corona, where like you saw that the people who were not doing well, like emotionally over Corona, people who were really agitated over it, spent a lot of time blaming, right? People wanted to blame the government. People want to blame the other people. People want to blame all, who are we blaming? Are we blaming China? Are we blaming America? Are we blaming our government? Are we blaming the hospitals? Are we blaming the doctors? Are we blaming the other people who are walking around and making people sick? Like, it was a lot of blame. And I remember feeling like we can either spend our time blaming, or we can just recognize like, this sucks. It just sucks. It's just annoying, and there's a lot of issues, and unfortunately, a lot of things are negative things are coming out of it. And it may be that people are at fault, and it may be that there are people that we could blame, but we don't even know who to blame. And in the end of the day, how much does that really serve us, right? And realizing that something can be sucky, something can be hard, something can be challenging, and it doesn't have to mean that we have to jump to blame someone for it. It doesn't have to even mean that, we have to look to see if there is someone to blame. We can just be like, this is hard. I'm overwhelmed. Let me
Now I
figure out
see
what I can do
here
so that
ST. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not overwhelmed. I'm just going to make sure everyone's muted so we have a good connection here. So that's one thing. Now, a lot of times, and this brings me to the next thing that I wanted to say, a lot of times when we are looking to blame our husbands, a lot of time that is coming from what I would call unvoiced expectations, right? Or unreasonable expectations, where there is a lot that needs to be done. And we may feel like my husband should be helping me with certain things, or he should be doing certain things, or he should know what I'm dealing with. He should offer to help in certain ways. He shouldn't be spending his time doing the things he is doing. And there's a lot of shooting going on, right? We're shooting all over our husbands and we're shooting all over like the situation. And a lot of times it's really important to realize that if there's something we want help with, something we want empathy for, something that we would like somebody else to help us out with, then it's really important to communicate that. It's really important to ask for it. It's really important to talk about it from a place of mutual respect, right? This is what I'd like help with. But remember also that just as much as we are struggling to get it all done, as much as it's too much for us to do because we have whatever it is that we want help with, right? He may also have reasons why he can't do it, right? He may also be stressed. He has his own to do list. And that's really important to remember also that all of us have to do lists that are very long at this time of year. And if you're thinking, like, yeah, but all of the holiday prep falls on me. I do the costume shopping. I make the mishloach manot. I clean for Pesach. I cook for Pesach. I get everyone's clothing. Okay, so maybe your husband's working harder to pay for all of it. Maybe he's dealing with stuff that we don't even realize on the back end what the men are doing in these situations, right? Maybe they're helping out things for the community. Maybe they're involved in they have maybe they're doing the shopping or they're doing the kashering or they're doing the delivering or they are helping making sure the boys have what they need. Like we just have to realize that as much as we have really long to-do lists, our husbands do as well, right? And anytime we look and we see, hey, he's not working as hard as I am. Well, number one, he may be taking his break just like we need to take as well. And number two, if there's something that you want done, make sure anything you want help with to really make sure that you are communicating that in a respectful way, right? You're asking for help. You're expressing your a request in a way that's respectful while also acknowledging and thanking him for what he can do and understanding what he can't do, right? A few years ago, actually came out Rosh Chodesh Adar. I was like, it needs to be out for Rosh Chodesh Adar. I put together a short program called Together from the Heart, which was all about how to, invite your husband to help you more, how to have more partnership. And I knew that it was something that was so meaningful at this time of year. And it actually ended up being very munish of mine because it was just before Corona hit. And then I ended up gifting it to the community. So many of you have actually had access to that and have benefited from some of those tools. And the kinds of things that I shared were very much in line with these ideas that we can ask for help. We can't expect it. We can ask for it, but we also have to make sure that we're asking in a respectful way that takes into account the fact that our husbands have their own things that they need to handle, right? Their own stuff that they're dealing with. And I just want to also share another idea, which is so important. I'm just checking if um, somebody was so I wanted to share that a third idea which is really important, and that is recognizing that we often, and this may already be something that you're feeling in your body when you saw the topic, something that your mind already went to. You may have this feeling of like, oh yeah, I'm already like just thinking about last Purim or last Pesach or last Sukkot makes me feel so angry at my husband. And a lot of times when we are stressed, right, whether it's because we're looking to blame or we feel resentful because we feel we're working harder, right? So we dealt with those too. But we may already get into this feeling of like the holidays are a time where we are against each other, where we're not on the same team, where we're always fighting. I remember feeling like I went into like every Erev Yom Kippur even was so stressful that we went into it feeling like, kind of like at odds with each other, which felt so strange for Erev Yom Kippur. But that's what happens when you're stressed and getting ready for a holiday, and there's so much to do, and you have your expectations, and you have you're not feeling that you're working together. So that's really what I wanted to share, is that it's so important to realize if you're already going into it, if you're already entering the season with this feeling of, oh yeah, I'm so mad at my husband, we're never on the same team, we're never in this together, and really inviting yourself to partner with your husband this coming holiday season, to see yourselves as on the same team and look to partner with him instead of feeling like you're opposite each other, instead of feeling like you're against each other, to feel like you're with each other. And this makes such a difference. It makes such a big difference when we already go into it with this feeling of it's me against you, right? It's everything I have to do that's going to come into conflict with everything you have to do. One of us has to be the victim here, one of us has to be doing more, right? And I'm going to be the one to win, and I'm doing more. And what you think you have so much on your shoulders, I'm working so hard. And what often happens when we're already in that mindset is that when our husbands share their feelings, maybe their concerns or their pressure on when a hug is coming up, then instead of teaming together about it, we see it as an attack, right? So last year a woman shared with me, a woman who was in the Absolutely Feminine program, shared with me how she was very nervous about Pesach because generally Pesach was a huge stress. Erev Pesach was a huge stress. Bedikas Chametz was a huge stress in their relationship. And she said how her husband would come in and he'd be, looking at the kitchen, he'd be looking at the house. He does a really, really intensive bedikas chametz. And if he finds even one speck of chametz, he'll be like, what's this? And she was saying, I get so personal, feel so attacked. Here I spend so much time cleaning, and then when he sees one little something, he's gonna be like, what is that? Like, what about everything else that I scrubbed and cleaned, and how could that be what he focuses on? And I said, I totally hear you. I totally can relate to that. That feeling of what about everything else that I did do? And what I invited her to recognize, what I invited her to step into, was instead being of a place of we're partners. We both want the same thing. The reason you've been working so hard for the last however many weeks, and the reason he's doing such a intense job in Badikas Chametz, is because you both want the house free of Chametz, right? So when he says, what's that speck? Instead of saying, why are you focusing on the speck? Right? How about if instead you said, thank you. Thank you for finding that. Oh my gosh, I missed it. And you're partnering in the event. You're partnering in your goals. And she was like, okay, I'm going to try. And I remember that Erev Pesach, she wrote me a message saying, Chana, I can't even believe how amazing this Erev Pesach is. We went through Bedikas Chametz as on the same team. And not only did I not get stressed and hurt and feel criticized, but he thanked me and appreciated me for everything that I did. And she just felt like so much on the same team with her husband. It made such a difference in the way that they were able to go into the holiday. And it was such a great way an amazing way to know that their relationship was in a different place, right? And and it's just an amazing thing that that kind of mind shift can bring, where we can really recognize that even if, right, there is some challenge that comes up, it doesn't have to be me against you. It doesn't have to be that someone's right and someone's wrong. It can simply be like the difference it makes when we're just on the same team, right? Oh my goodness, we don't have any, I remember like years where it's like, oh my gosh, we don't have this for the Seder plate. I don't know. There's always something, right? And we could either sit there going, who threw it out and whose fault is it? And you did it. No, you told me, usually it's like this Roa, like, after my husband finishes grading the maror, we forget to keep to say the grace and we say, you told me that you did it. You told me that you did it. And can anyone hear me now? Can you hear me now? Am I back? Hello? Let me know if you can hear me again. Yeah? Yay. Okay. I'm like talking and then I'm like, my internet says it's on 0. So like nobody can hear me. Okay. So if let's say all of a sudden you realize, right, we don't have a zroa, like we threw out the maror head that was left over. So whose fault is that? I could say, well, I asked if you were finished and you said you were done. So that's it. I threw it out. I didn't know that you needed it. And he might say, how dare you have thrown it out? Like, don't you know that we need it? And in that moment, that's not going to help anyone, right? We're not, and really the truth is we're not enemies. We're on the same team. We both want a full Seder plate. We both want to get started. We both want the Seder to be amazing, right? Like there's really no reason and nothing to be gained from playing the whose fault is it game, right? From playing the victim, from the race to be the victim. There's nothing that we're going to get out of that, right? There's no benefit. And by recognizing that, oh, hey, yeah, this is a situation, let's deal with it, then it can be dealt with. And it won't just have an effect on you, and it won't just have an effect on the holiday. It'll even affect, like, it'll affect your husband, it'll affect both of you when you're just in that, like, oh, yeah, mindset instead of feeling attacked or hurt or looking to blame, right? So, these are just a few of the ideas that we can use. There's really so many, we can also talk about looking at our expectations, looking at our expectations not just of our husband, but our expectations of ourselves, right? Realizing that there's no way we're going to get everything done or get everything done perfectly, right? So that's a really important thing to recognize, that we really need to notice when we're expecting too much of ourselves and realize that our expectations are our own expectations, not our husband's expectations, not our husband's, pictures of an ideal hug. Just like his expectations are not, does not mean that we need to fill that, right? If there's something that he wants done, he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you didn't do X, Y, and Z, whatever that is, right? You didn't make a huge, suuda with whatever, or that you didn't, I don't know, clean a certain thing a certain way. And it's important for you to recognize that if he wanted something done a certain way and it wasn't, that doesn't mean that you are bad or that you are a victim. It means that it wasn't communicated to you. And you also don't have to feel hurt or bad or mean that that cancels out everything else that you did do, right? Because what you did, you did. And if something didn't get done, it didn't get done. If it's important, it can be communicated about. And you can see if you can do it. And if you can't, you can let him know honestly whether or not you can do it and invite him to partner with you. And perhaps he can take care of it himself, or he can you can discuss how to rearrange some things so that you can get it done. But the important thing here is communication and managing our expectations, right? Those are really the biggest keys in dealing with big stuff that's going on in our lives, especially the upcoming, 6 weeks that are excuse me, that or month, I know 6 weeks that are coming up in our lives. And when we can manage our expectations and recognize our own expectations of ourselves, our expectations of our husbands, right? And make sure that we're communicating about what's important for us and allowing our husbands to communicate with us without us getting attacked, right? That's going to make a huge difference in how you deal with and work together as a team over the next 6 weeks. Because in the end of the day, when we sit down at the Seder, right, it's it's an amazing feeling to be sitting down with your partner with, feeling like we dealt with the last 6 weeks together and we are a team together rather than going into it feeling like you're against each other and on opposite sides. So, with that, I'm going to wish you all Chodesh Tov, even though we still have a few days of Adar Aleph, and invite you to keep making the most of this time in our lives, but also we can really already start to gear up for the weeks ahead, and let me know which of these tools make the biggest difference for you, and any specific, as I'm speaking, as I was as you were listening to these ideas, any specific triggers that you already know will come up over the next 6 weeks that you would like to talk about, that you'd like me to discuss, that you'd like more tools for, please don't hesitate to send me more questions and just title the email, coffee and connection, or respond to a coffee and connection so that I can, really support you in the weeks ahead. So thank you very much for, you know, connecting with me tonight or today. And until next time, may we all be blessed to live, love, and be loved with all our hearts. Goodbye for now. Chodesh Tov.